Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR. And I'm your host, the counselor. See, my last podcast, we were talking about male depression or depression in men. And I thought that we could take another look at depression, but this time maybe we should be talking about depression in women because there are some real differences. As long as we understand that depression, it's just like these feelings of emptiness, sadness, helplessness. Now, that's common in depression in men and women in all genders, not just men and women. We want to include everyone, right? So let's think about it. You have to understand, even when it comes to women, we're going to be talking about the signs, some of the causes, some symptoms of this female depression. And how can we go about recovering from some of this? Because it's a state of mind, and wherever your mind is, that's where you have to find out. You got to learn a little bit about what's going on with yourself, educate yourself, get some support and help. But to whatever level of depression you may be in, it is a state of mind, and it's something that we have to understand. So if we're um, understanding depression in women, we do know that depression can impact every area of a woman's life: her physical health, her relationships, her occupation, career, her sense of self-worth, right? And it even gets complicated, more complicated to that than that, like even a little difference even from men. Factors that are include what hormones, reproductive hormones, social pressures, right? And women have a unique response to how stress is going to get them. It's important for them to know that they are not alone, right? But they can be really in a really detrimental position if there's no help seeked, if it gets too bad. So we have to closely monitor people who, especially women who are um, in that state, in that mental state of depression, right? But depression is treatable, and there are many things that you can do to get yourself better, right? And as long as you understand that, you got to take some action. It's not just about suggestions. Too many of us want the information, but we don't want to act on it. That's a big one in society. Everybody thinks they're educated. However, how many of us are actually using this education and acting on it for the betterment of all good, for the betterment of ourselves? How many of us actually do that? A lot of us listen, take it in, and next thing you know, they're just on to something else. But when it comes to depression, right, you have to take action, right, because it is difficult for women. And you have to understand that you're not going to have a lot of energy, even to take short walks around your neighborhood, even to pick up the phone, to call someone you care about, someone you love. These are things that you might not have a lot of energy and motivation to do. But if you can do that, it's a good start to help you with your mood. And it's going to improve your outlook. So it's important to understand the causes of depression in women so that you can deal with this condition straight on, right? And the way we treat depression is, and the way we come back is to understand that we are not alone and that there are options for us. So that's very encouraging for a number of people. Whichever method or strategy that you use, there are things that can be done to make the situation better. So that's good. So, what are some of these symptoms and signs of depression in women? And it can, remember, depression can vary from mild to major depression. And you can distinguish between the two by the impact they have on your ability to operate, to function, right? Just be aware of some the common signs in women. Think about it, such as feeling that helplessness and hopelessness. Something that you don't think is going to get better. You believe that in your world, whatever you do, you've tried a number of things, people have talked to you, blah blah, and in your mind you are feeling that, you know what, it's hopeless. There's nothing I can do to improve my situation. And that's when you know that's one sign of depression. That's very evident, right? When your thought patterns, or if you just don't care anymore about things that you used to do, things you used to be involved in, people you used to talk to. You isolate yourself. Now it's just you all by yourself. You're not even interested in any social activities, ones that you used to enjoy. That's a serious sign, right? And some people notice that their health with regards to what they're eating can deteriorate, right? Weight loss or weight gain. Just these appetite changes, that is an indicator that there's something going on, especially rapid weight loss or weight gain, you know? And of course, if you're not sleeping and you're going, I just don't know why um, I'm not getting any sleep lately. What's going on? Well, it might not be at the top of your head, but you got to know that when you can't sleep and your patterns are interrupted, that means you got a lot on your mind and you got to start releasing some of that stuff or identifying what's on your mind. Even if it's stress, it could be coming from a place you don't even really understand because you've just been dealing with it or you accepted it and you're trying to work through it. It could be getting on you to the point where it's disrupting your sleep pattern. Think about it. If you don't get your sleep pattern, you're not going to be 100%, right? Some of your judgments, decisions are going to be a little uh, off center. So you got to make sure that you're getting your proper sleep, well balanced. That's one of the most important things you can do for yourself. Make sure you get some rest because we're always up on the go. So sleep patterns need to be consistent. You need to get your rest. So if you're not getting your rest, you're going to be more agitated, more irritable, right? That's going to be a problem. That could be somewhere where you start. But also, if you see somebody feeling, or you yourself feeling angry or agitated, or you're restless, that's a sign as well you're going through something. You're tired, sluggish, you just ain't got no energy. That's when that depression, it just starts to show itself, right? These are little things, right? Or what if you can't even focus anymore? You have difficulty concentrating, making rational decisions, or any decisions that you need to be making, but that for some reason you're all over the place. You're not on your game, right? Even you're forgetting things, right? Watch it. The brain's the most complex thing out there. And when you got a lot going on from commitments to communication, that control center, you got to watch it. You got to watch it when you start to lose a little bit of control. So, right? And what if you get an increase in headaches and pains? You get cramps. And see, in women, they get that breast tenderness or bloating. You know, it's, or it goes deeper, right? Scary, deeper. Suicidal thoughts. Men get it too, but women get it as well. And they also tend to experience certain depression symptoms more than certain men, right? Especially, see, this is a difference. See, women have a tendency to feel some more depression during the winter months for some reason. Lower levels of sunlight, they say it's related to, right? We call symptoms of the atypical depression, right? So rather than sleeping less, eating less, and losing weight, you experience the opposite. You oversleep. You're eating more, especially those carbohydrates, and you're gaining weight. See, that's that atypical depression where you see you know it. See those people, and then some of you will sit up there and go, "Oh, that person, look at them. They're just sleeping all day." What? No, it is a sign that something's going on. So you got to change it up. Or you got to help them change it, or you got to change it up for yourself. If they're sleeping way too much and they're eating excessively and they're gaining all kinds of, it's not healthy. That just tells you that something's wrong. But there's also things you cannot see, like strong feelings of guilt and worthlessness. We we do realize that for women, they are really critical of themselves, right? And they could criticize themselves very harshly for their perceived faults or errors or mistakes that they make. That's another one. Sometimes, quite often, a lot of women are hard on themselves. There are a lot of expectations put on them, but they're very hard on themselves. And when you go into a depression or state of depression, you even get harder on yourself. And that's when it gets scary. So let's just say for now, for everyone who's listening out there, if you are feeling suicidal, you know, um, and you got problems that they're not temporary problems, that you don't see them as temporary, and you might be feeling overwhelmed, and you might think that there's nothing you could do about it, and it's permanent, and if you reach out for some assistance, and I'm not just talking about just talking to a friend, reach out to a family member, reach out for some professional help, go see your family doctor. Because if you're getting the impression that these problems that you're in is permanent and you're never going to move on it, that's when you know for sure you got to get some help, right? And I suggest reading some information on suicide. Even if you're feeling suicide, I know a lot of people aren't into do it, but you got to start somewhere to get yourself out. If you're not going to do it, who's going to do it? So you got to start with little things. And I always like to say, like, even when it comes to women, when it comes to anyone with depression, but you have to try to look at, okay, what are some of the causes that have put me into this state of depression, right? What is it, right? And maybe some of it could be the premenstrual problems. And this is according to research that there are hormonal fluctuations during their cycle that can cause them, symptoms of PMS, bloating, irritability. It's real. See, as much as a lot of men don't understand, and we'll never understand, and I don't even claim to understand, but and I'm not saying all women who are going through these premenstrual problems are depressed. No, no, that's not I'm just saying that can be indicators or factors that you can think about, may be something that correlate to depression, right? If they're going through a lot, if they're not feeling well. Because when you're not feeling well, you start to feel sad. And, if it's really bad, right? Severe pain, severe cramps. And, even when I was talking with a colleague the other day, and she was quite open, quite frank. And she's like, you know what? For all the things that we get, there's not any one thing. Like, a lot of women might take Midol, but they might take a little bit. However, it's not a cure. It might help, right? In certain cases, for sure. However, there is no one medication that they can refer to that's going to alleviate. So it's very complex, and for good reason, right? That women, very complex, and their system is very complex, and just understanding they know their bodies, they understand it. I'm just saying these are some of the causes of some issues in relation to how some people can get a little depressed, especially if they're not feeling well, right? If they're going through these problems. What about even when it comes to pregnancy and infertility? That's a problem too. I mean, it's real. How many people are stressing about getting pregnant? Or one big one that I know personally of a lot of people, even my age, a lot of women who are trying to get pregnant, right? Like, if you really think about it, like, this is like, can you really think about what's going on in society today? I mean, a lot of the women have, you know, got their careers together and then they decide to have children, but unfortunately, they might be at the later stages of their lives. See, age does. They like to tell people that age doesn't matter, but age does matter when it comes. Now, mind you, there are women having babies as they get older, for sure. But there are a number that are using the infertility clinics. They're all over the place. There's a lot of infertility clinics when the benefits is covering it. They cover a portion, not all of it. A lot of them got to pull out the money, but let's say you're trying to have a baby and you can't have a baby. Whether he's shooting blanks or you are, doesn't matter. The point is pregnancy could be something that, these hormonal changes that occur during pregnancy can contribute to depression. especially women who are at high risk, right? And think about some of the terrible things that women have to go through and endure, like miscarriage or unwanted pregnancy and infertility. Like, these play a role in depression. And just understanding that they go through a lot that we will never understand. And I think we need to understand that, right? We don't help the situation when we lack understanding, even as men, right? When we lack this understanding, oh, that's their problem, not mine. I think we need to understand. And men who really respect women, they understand. They don't carry on with foolishness. They respect women. They respect everyone in general, not just women, but they respect it with a little under. Most men don't know anything about this stuff we're talking about. So giving them a little bit of education, like, yes, I have, you got yours, I got mine. That's how they thought about it. That's how it is in a lot of the case. So women, I just tell all women out there that yes, we do appreciate you. The ones who respect women should be respected. But I think a little understanding goes a long way with education as well. Not just guessing and, oh baby, you all right. No, like, do a little bit of reading, understand. Okay, look, maybe she's going through a lot right now, because that's going to help someone too that's going through it. The depression, a little empathy, a little understanding, not sympathy, empathy, right? But we also have postpartum depression. And you might have a partner after she had the baby. She might say, oh, you know what? I don't even know what they're talking about. Um, you know what? My baby was fine, right? I didn't have no feelings. I was good. I was lucky. I was fortunate. Meanwhile, her husband's dead. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The point is that women go through postpartum depression, and it's real. It's called the baby blues, and it's a normal reaction. Not all women go through it, but a number of them. And this reaction tends to subside within weeks. However, we have to be realistic and understand that some women are different. There's no one hard and fast rule that applies to all people. So let's get that straight. I don't know where we came with that rule. Everything applies. I guess we got to have some sort of foolish order going on. But people's bodies are different, but there are some commonalities, and that's what we look at. So some women have severe, lasting depression based on this postpartum depression, right? It's called postpartum depression. After this baby has come, then these are the emotions, and a lot of them, researchers and doctors say, and women say, it could be related to hormonal fluctuations, right? Then you have the menopause and the perimenopause, right? And women can be at risk for depression during perimenopause. And this is a stage leading to menopause when reproductive hormones and I mean rapidly fluctuate. So women who have a history of depression, they are at increased risk of depression during menopause as well because of the hormonal fluctuation. As we mentioned earlier, there are some differences when it comes to male depression and women depression or female depression. And the female physiological response to stress is another indication. Once, they, because at this stage, this physiological response to stress is a stage where the stress hormones, which are actually more than men, right? And it's the female sex hormone progesterone prevents stress hormone system from turning itself off as it does in men. So this can make women more susceptible to developing depression triggered by stress because of this hormone that's at play. So just to clarify, both men and women have stress hormones. Women a little bit more than men, but they also have this female sex hormone, progesterone, as I mentioned, and that prevents that regular stress hormone from shutting off. So this keeps it going on. This what keeps the stress and the depression going on because this female sex hormone, progesterone, blocks that stress hormone. And that is in addition to other signs and causes for depression. Like, one very common is the body image issues. And this increases in girls, especially during their sexual development or stages of puberty. And this may contribute to depression as well. Thyroid problems, right? This can cause depression. This medical problem should always be looked at by a professional. Um, that for sure. So, women who have thyroid problems, that can cause depression in some women. And then, of course, there's medical side effects when people get medication, and that could be from right the birth control pill, the shot, or even hormone replacement therapy. See, the health plays a very big part in some of indicating or looking out for some of this depression or trying to find out what state. Um, some of these causes here quite serious. So health problems like chronic illness, injury, or disability, they can lead to depression too, right? Somebody gets injured, they don't feel useless. Their mind starts to go deep into a depression. They're not active anymore. They can crash diet, or these are things that also can lead to depression. Just anything related to your health, even smoking. People who smoke regular, they're serving the body, oh, it's what I need, and then actually when they quit, they can go into a depression. You don't realize it, but they do. They've been dependent upon this chemical for so long, right? And then when they can't have it, or they decide to give it up, some go into a depression because their body's saying, you know what, there's a fight going on. Cognitively, there's an imbalance. You want it, but it's not good for you, but you give it up, and then your body's still yearning for it. That's an internal conflict. So that could also affect your mental health. And mental health is something that we need to learn more about. So causes of depression could be loneliness and isolation, a lack of social support, so similar to men. Family history of depression, early childhood trauma or abuse, and I'm talking about all kinds, whether it's physical, mental, right? Early childhood trauma, people don't realize that things that happen to some of these young children, it just grows as they grow. And it can be quite traumatic. Of course, alcohol and drugs is something that is a cause for depression. You're altering your mind. See, people just taking alcohol and drugs and are like, yeah, this stuff makes me feel good. But anytime you are altering your mind or your body, it has an impact. And see, whatever goes up must come down. Right? You get the good feeling of alcohol. However, what does it do? It has its adverse effects. Not just when you get drunk. See, people see there's a problem when it gets extreme, like somebody who's really drunk all the time. Then you could call them out. That's easy to do, right? Call somebody out when they're drinking a lot. Now, mind you, we don't think of why they're drinking a lot or what could they be dealing with in their life or going through, whether it's separation, divorce, death, cancer, whatever. We don't think about that. We only think that they're using alcohol and it's getting to the extreme, right? And so just knowing that, you need to understand that anytime you alter your mindset, your body with chemicals like alcohol and drugs, you can get yourself into a depression. You're manipulating your body every time you use drugs and alcohol on your body. You really are. But also causes for depression could be your relationship, marital relationships, you know, trying to balance your life between your career, your home life, your private life, right? These are people get depressed when changes happen and when they're trying to deal or they're dealing with a partner or they're having issues or they're feeling responsibilities that are overwhelming. That could be a cause for depression, especially those family responsibilities. You have a lot of family responsibilities like caring for children, your spouse, even aging parents. See, that's a big one too. I never thought about, but like as you get older, see, when you're coming up and you're going through your life and you're all young and you're all thinking about, oh man, what can I accomplish? What can I do in my life? You're just such a dreamer, right? They call it a foolish dreamer. If you're lucky enough to be a foolish dreamer, we don't really have a lot of foolish dreamers, but if you're a foolish dreamer, you're happy. Okay, you are, because your mind's open to possibilities. A lot of the reason why I say you're fortunate if you're a foolish dreamer, because you realize that there are things that you could do in your life, that it's not just static. Where there's other people that I got to have this job, I got to make this amount of money, I got to do, that's stress, that's pressure. There's responsibilities for sure in it, but there still needs to be some dreaming. But my point is, you're growing up and you have all these things that you're looking forward to, or aspiring to, or believing in. And then you come to realize, like, wait, it's not just about me. So these family responsibilities, like aging parents. See, I have an aging parent, and I'm like, whoa, that is some. I thought it was just about me. They were just putting a diaper on me and letting me run wild with it, but not true. I got to worry about them too. Ooh, that's a deep one. That's a deep one. Like when you got to think about your parents. And I got male friends, and they're looking after their mothers and splitting the responsibilities with their sisters. It's a wonderful thing, but you don't really think about that when you're growing up. I think a lot of people got to think about it. I think the one thing I would change, though, when I'm talking to them, because that could be depressing if you're worried about what's happening to your parent, if they're being taken care of. You could get into a depression because maybe you feel you can't help them or something. There's a lot of, or the parents are older and they're saying something because you're caring for them, right? And you don't want to. You want to live your life. You thought you were going to be on your own, and your partner thought that you both were going to grow with this beautiful home and grow up with your kids. And once your kids are gone, you know what I mean? You're like, we're free. We done spent most of our lives looking after these kids, trying to keep them together. And then now we got to look at that window there and see somebody in there that we have to take care of. Oh my goodness, does it ever stop? It's a cycle. And see, most people take it on naturally, love it, no problem. But there are some people that take it on and it becomes too much and they get into a depression, right? And we got to be honest, man, all older people aren't they're not all nice. Most of them are loving, wonderful people for sure, but not all seniors are nice. And there's a number of reasons why they're not nice. You could imagine. It's like going from being a baby, right? Think about it. It's almost like reverse, right? When you're little, you wear a diaper, you learn to walk, this, that. Well, when you get older, you wear a diaper, but you stop walking. So it's a whole cycle. So you got to look at that and go, what? Because I know for sure that I have a couple colleagues who have family members who are nurses, and they have one of the toughest jobs in the world because these people are abused by some patients, right? That's one of the most challenging jobs out there because people, they're not well. Let's put it this way. So some of them get abusive, right? But I'm just talking about seniors. There's a lot of wonderful seniors, but some aren't so nice. So let's imagine if you have to take care of them and they're putting you down, or right, they're always talking bad, or your relationship is getting stressed because you are taking care of your mother, and your husband is like, that's not what his intention was, or they don't get along. It's a really strange dynamic that could go on in a household where you have a couple who are looking after the older one, especially if the old one is like maybe enabled, or has difficulty with processing, or dementia, or they just need a lot of help. So if you can't afford to have them taken care of in a home, or have somebody taking care of them and from family other than yourself, that becomes a depression for some people. They get stressed out. So I recommend for young people, even, like, if you have parents, get some life insurance on them when you get middle age, at least, so that at least you can help pay if they need that extra support, because everything costs. So that little $25 a month might not seem like nothing when you're 30, but you don't want to wait till, you know what I mean? Because when you get 50 and they need that care, that's some big money. You know how much people, some of those seniors they have to put out the pocket? That's some big money. So what I'm saying is that would just be something I recommend. But anyway, that could cause depression for women. And we're focusing on women because, let's be honest, even when it comes to um, taking care of the seniors, a lot of the women, it's expected that they do it. Is it fair? No, it's not. But that's a lot of times the expectation. See, a man will be the first one to say, yeah, we got to take care of my mother. And so he's married, so his wife's like, yeah, I'll do it. And if they don't get along with the mother, oh my goodness, that could be a nightmare. Some of you women out there will know what I'm talking about. It could be challenging, right? It really could challenge. It's challenged a lot of relationships. And I know I've dealt with clients that's number one on their agenda. They're fine well into those days where they have to take care of the older loved ones, the elders, right? So that could challenge a relationship, those family responsibilities. But also, a big one is discrimination. Now, you may encounter discrimination if you're shopping or dealing with people in the public. However, it can really get compounded when you think about discrimination in the workplace, right? Returning every day to this place where you're feeling undervalued, oppressed, ignored, isolated, victimized. That is a very big cause for depression. People suffer in silence. That's real. And discrimination, the problem with discrimination is, especially in Canada, I got to tell you, people say, oh, it's a great country. And yes, there are wonderful things about this country, but I can't say great. I could say it's good and I appreciate it, but I will be honest to say that people don't like to talk about reality sometimes. When discrimination does happen, a lot of people they just look past it. They get defensive. People say, well, no, it doesn't exist. It's not happening. And once you can't have a discussion on it. And once the response is not possible, I know this person, and everybody tries to justify. Now, we're not just talking about throwing the word out there randomly to suggest everybody's discriminating again. No, but if you're facing discrimination, not just on the face value of how you look or your gender or whatever, if you're being discriminated against at work, then that's going to cause you some serious concern, right? Could prevent you from reaching your goals, excelling in your workplace, right? Changing job or losing a job or in retirement, right? All these different venues, the military, the police force, discrimination exists in all these areas. And women feel it when it comes to some of these issues. We don't talk about it. A lot of them don't take breaks to deal with it. And a lot of the times, the sad thing is, we talk about it, but nothing happens, right? And that's what's really disturbing. That's where the depression is. We get to label it depression, but because it's garbage and people can be negative out there and have that negative energy and project it onto other people, make them feel less than. It's sad, it's terrible, but it's true. But just knowing that you got to deal with that all the time, that's debilitating. It's sad, but that's not enough. We got work to do. We have to acknowledge it. But that could lead to depression, understandably so. So you just imagine being a woman in a work environment, and sure, most of the people are wonderful, fantastic, but then all it takes is one, and they're exerting their power over you, or intimidating, or oppressing, or making sly, slick comments, or being very sneaky. And trust is a big one. However, it's so funny because some build your trust, and then you know what? People know them, they're popular, or sometimes they're not. A lot of times they're not, but they're in a position where people have relationships with them, and they never would think that these people would cross boundaries, right? But they're crossing boundaries in the workplace, and that could lead to some serious depression. And it's not because just people aren't doing anything, it's because it's happening consistently out there. And there's a lot of things that need to improve for sure. So just that alone, whether it's your race, your sex, your religion, right? All these things, you know, people get impacted by, and they could get into a depression. And sometimes you won't even know what's going on. They ain't even talking about it. They're just dealing with it. And there's a lot of reasons why they're dealing, because maybe they're in a family, they got kids, and they got to take care of their kids, right? They have to breathe, take care of their kids, feed their kids, and that's all they want to do. They don't need no bullshit from somebody above them trying to harass them or violate them or talk shit to them or come behind them and try and be sneaky or, show dirty. Men do that even in 2020. Not all men. There's wonderful men out there. Don't get that twisted. But there's the opposite end of that spectrum too, and you see that, right? You see some guys up there, like I've seen it. I'm a man. I've seen what some men do, and it's like I gotta be like, yo, man. A lot of men don't say nothing, right? But you gotta sometimes, I'd like to say you got to, but the truth is you have to say what you gotta say. And if you make a mistake, you gotta own it. But the point is, you can't let it get out of hand, man. So the point is that we gotta talk to certain men ourselves as men to say what's up, right? Out of respect, you know. That's all. And ones that might be talking about certain things or having certain ideas in their head, we have an obligation to speak up and say it when it's going down. And right, we have an obligation as human beings, right, to respect each other. But like I said, these things happen, and when they do happen, that could definitely lead to it. There's different things that go on, but we're just talking about how these elements of society, these nasty people, impart themselves on others, and they violate and they take control, and they oppress and dominate certain situations, and people feel powerless, and it adds up eventually, right? All these little things start to add up, and it could definitely lead you into a state of depression. So how do you get over it? How do you deal with some of this, right? All I know is if it comes to hormonal, that's a department like I don't really try to get too heavy into. I strongly recommend that have it. Women are doing their own jobs, working with their doctors. They know what to do. My recommendation is figure it out. That sometimes some of the fields you go to, you just got to go for help for it. That's all. Even young girls out there talking to their family, yes, they do know and understand. But I'm just saying, you know what? These are some of the symptoms. So get some professional help when it comes to your doctor. Women know what to do. But I'm just saying this is one of the causes and some of the symptoms, right? So how do we deal with the biological? That's a professional thing between a woman and her doctor, and we got to respect that for sure and keep it there. We got to let women respect themselves by allowing them to deal with themselves so that they understand and know themselves. That's what I believe. I believe that it's them, respect that. That's it. Keep it there. I'm kind of against these laws that are telling them what to do with their body. I'm not really for that. I think that I wouldn't want anybody telling me what to do with mine. See, this is the thing. I think we have to think respect for each other. Whereas I wouldn't want anyone telling me what to do, so I'm not going to tell them what to do when it comes to them. That's it. Right? Good or bad. There's no perfect answer in this life. We've been looking for it forever, but there is none. We're all reaching out there trying to do what we got to do, and there's no permanent answers for anything, as you know, if you're in the middle age right now, right? We're all just figuring it out. So how do you get better from some of these things? How do you get yourself out of this state of depression? How are you going to do it? Well, I think one way for sure, and I always say this, and I'm going to continue to say it till the end of time, is social support. And this could be very challenging at that time in your life, reaching out. You're not going to feel like it. You're not going to be feeling like going out there. You got yourself to this state and you're in it. Well, I still say you need some sort of support system, somebody to talk to. Just a little bit of change in this depression, right? It's called self-help, and we have to cover that. You still got to feel that you can do something, because you have to understand that getting better, feeling better takes time and effort. So if you don't feel like doing that, right? You know what I mean? When you don't feel like putting that effort, just know that you are capable of it. And it might not be big steps, but you can take small steps. Start making positive choices for yourself. day by day, right? And draw on the few supports you might have. And if you don't, and there are people even today that go, I have no friends. That's a big one. I have no friends. 100,000 people in a 5 block radius, and I have no friends. That could be very depressing, right? You see your neighbors every day. Like, I mean, even when it comes to neighbors, do we really talk to our neighbors really that much? Oh, we maybe know a couple of them and we have a little talk or whatever. We let a few in, whatever. Some, not everybody's open. We're deal. See, diversity, right? That is the one thing that we still got to learn to communicate across cultures with, right? So that's why I said when we isolate ourselves and we're trying to even reach out and people aren't, open to that, that could be very disturbing for a lot of people. So they don't intentionally mean it, but these are challenges. This is why I said we have to take some steps, right, to overcome the depression by getting support from people mostly who we care about. However, I would say professional is where I go as well. But get some people who you could talk to in your family, and there's usually one person that you may be able to talk to. But there are people who have no friends, and if you have no friends, get some professional help, right? Because if you don't understand and take a healthy mindset and a healthy perspective on depression and want to work towards getting out of it, this thing could last for a very long time if you don't start to change your mindset. You could get into a deep depression. And that makes it difficult for you to reach out for help once you get into a deep depression. And we talked about the withdrawal and isolation and irritable mood. And I know there are a lot of people say, "Oh, you make it sound so easy. Oh, just reach out for someone." And it's not easy at all because a lot of people don't want to hear your problems. They got enough of their own problems. If anything, they'll be kind. They'll listen for a minute, right? And then, after a while, you can see they're not paying attention, and it could be the same old song for them. And you could be needed when it comes to this. You could need their attention, and they might want to give it, but to them, they could check out because they might like, "Oh, you're bringing me down." So it takes work to even be a support person. And we can't expect that everyone is always going to be there. A lot of times people look to their parents for it. But if you don't have parents around or parents aren't alive or you don't even have good communication with your parents, that's not always the go-to situation. So that's why I said try to get some support and help professional support. So how do you reach out? Because there are people struggling with that. They have to learn how to reach out. And you have to look for people, support people who make you feel safe and cared for. They don't have to cure everything about you. They're not there to fix you. They just need to be good listeners and say that. Say, listen, I need a good listener right now. I just need somebody who can listen and support me here. Not really tell me what to do, but just, be there for me. Tell them that's what you're looking for. Someone who is able to give you a little bit of time, right? Who will listen attentively and compassionately without judging you. That's a big one because we feel a lot of pressure from being judged, whether it's our parents, our siblings, our loved ones. It's not easy to reach out, and that's why we have to talk about how we do it. So we have to, first of all, look for supportive people who make you feel safe and cared for, right? And I really strongly suggest, if anything, face to face. Make that a priority, right? Of course, there's social media. Of course, you can do phone calls and text. These are wonderful tools to use, but nothing, and I do mean nothing, replaces the good old fashioned personal, face to face quality time. Just talking to someone face to face about how you feel, it plays a vital role in relieving your depression and keeping it away. It's so detrimental to your mental health. Trying to make sure, because I know during this pandemic, oh, you're being ridiculous. We can't really, well, that is the new norm, but it doesn't mean it's gone, right? The new norm right now for the pandemic is that a lot of people are doing that distance education or communication or that Google Meet. A lot of people are doing that. And that's great, but there's an element there, especially when you're trying to deal with mental health. There's something about us as human beings. We need that physical connect. And I don't mean just physical, that aura. Sometimes we need to be even, there's so many parts to it. It's so complex. I like to explain it, but I just, that connectedness, that environment, that presence, that is wonderful for a lot of us who are going through things. It's there's sometimes just being out of your certain environment changes your whole perspective. But if you can make face to face time a priority, and while we have it, right, even though we're going through this pandemic, while we do have it, try to maintain it. I strongly suggest if you have a doctor or someone you've been seeing, try to maintain that and tell them I need a trusting person, right? But as I mentioned earlier, keep up your social activities. If you've let some go, try to pick some up. Don't feel you have to, like, but it would be a good start for you, especially if you're feeling depressed. Getting out a little bit or trying to pick up something. Because I know when people go into a state of depression, they don't feel like doing a whole lot. But, you know, they got to try because it's not hard to slip into a shell. You know what I mean? But you also want to be around people who make you feel less depressed. I know a lot of you understand that, oh, I got a good friend, but watch it because you have a friend that may be sweet, but they're sarcastic, and if you're not in that mood and they're making comments, you're gonna snap, or you're just gonna be accommodating, or if you're not even snapping and you're putting up with it. You know what I mean? You're just allowing this person to really talk to you, and you're being accommodating, but they're really getting on your nerves, and you're going through a lot, and you're just, you're there. No, be genuine. um, Make sure that you find yourself around people who aren't going to add to your stress, or where you got to be confined to certain areas and certain environments, and being out of your element. No, try to keep away from that. Try to find ways to get that support, but also, if you can, if you're up to it, support others, we've said, and join a support group. There are support groups. Oddly enough, a lot of the support groups, they they're busy, especially now. There's a lot of support groups out there, but there are some that, are very open, and it could be a great way to start getting out of this state of mind and working towards the better you, being in environments where people understand exactly what you're talking about when you feel like driving that car through the wall or what, right? Like, we never really talk about that. That's not a conversation most of us have when we're at our limit, right? We keep it to ourselves. We scream sometimes if we're in a parking lot, or we drive a little bit too fast, or we see a green and we go red. Whatever. We see a green in our head when it's red and we're going all the way. You know what I mean? We got so much on our mind that we just, there comes a point where you just don't care anymore. You start doing things. That's when you're out of control. Some people want to be out of control because they've had enough, right? It's true. So, trying to find some groups, getting out there, understanding that there will be times, some challenging times. However, you can get it. You can get yourself together. But there are states that we get into. But if you find, this is the key, if you find that you're in that negative state too often for too long, and your perception changes about your ability to cope, you need to be seeking help for sure. Not just speaking up. You need to get some help. Be active. Try to bring yourself back. But if you can't, you got to get some help. It's real. So make sure you're taking care of your health, because that is so important, right? Take care of your health. And I don't mean just your physical health, I mean your mental health. Don't have no man around you who's putting you down all the time. And I know that sounds like an easy comment, but I'm sorry. Somebody's got to say it. Have your worth, right? And I know I can't make that just a judgment for everyone, but I'm saying try to make sure that, you're looking at what some of the causes are, basically, right? Make sure you are aware of the impact your relationship could have on your mental state. If you have somebody in your life that's not giving you your due or respecting you, or rather disrespecting you or undermining you. And I'm just saying that you should consider looking at some of the causes. If it's one, try to rectify it in some sort of way or limit that interaction and stress for your mind. So make sure that that's something you try to consider. That's a lot of work. I don't want to make it sound easy. It's a lot of work, but you can do it. Now, your health, as I said, sleep, right? Keep your stress in check. Understand, you have to make sure that you do something that you probably don't do, and that is relaxation techniques. A couple minutes a day. I'm big on this. Daily relaxation practice. Clear your mind, couple breaths, right? To reduce the stress, improve the feelings, improve your well being. And that means even joining yoga or Pilates or an exercise class or meditation. Learn how to meditate. Go to a class. Get into a little bit of caring for pets. All these things help support your health. Pets, cats, dogs. And I do say that with a sense of caution. A lot of people go, "Oh yeah, pets are great." Yes, they can if you are really really, really committed to having a pet. Don't get one just be, I'm feeling terrible. Let me get that could add to your stress because I know as soon as a dog craps on my carpet, that's stressful. And I don't think I'm in a depression. I just can't believe I'm still doing this. But those pets that crap places, oh, it's disgusting. It's like, it gets on your nerve. And if you're the type of person where it gets on your nerve, that's not going to help your depression. So don't get into it, right? Oh, you want to borrow my dog? No, you don't. If you don't, say you don't. I know you're going through, so you want to borrow. Yeah. Or that could be if you do. Maybe it's not your pet. See, that's a good one right there. If it's not your pet, where maybe you got a friend that has a pet and they're a beautiful pet, but maybe you say, hey, listen, can I take the pet for a walk or, something like that once in a while for a weekend just to get you out for a walk. Even if you feel more safe and they have a dog with you, that's great. Get it from a friend or someone. That's a good, important thing to do too. But pets can be great as long as you're aware that if you're committing to them, they become companions in your life and you're an obligation and a responsibility, right? It can be an antidote for depression, but it also could work the reverse. So use pets sparingly when you come to your strategies on how to get yourself back. It's not something most people know if it's for them or not. You don't just go and get a pet just because you're depressed, but you understand that they can do. But start off light, right? And I would suggest that you have someone who has a pet and see if that's something you really want and if it makes your life better, right? Instead of getting one, instead of just borrowing and say, hey, you know what? Let me just work with the pet with you a little bit. Go for what? Get a friend involved who has a pet or somebody you know. You know what I mean? Just before you take on that, because it's not a good feeling when you take on something like a live animal and then you got to give it back, or right, you can't really take care of it, or you're stressed because you feel you did something you can't get back out of. Don't do that. And as I say, even with men, women have to have their toolkit. They do their toolkit. And I'm gonna switch it up, and I'm not gonna say toolkit, but I'm gonna say their basket, right? Their basket of goodies. How about that? Things that they could use to help them in these things that they have that they enjoy, whether it's coupons to go shopping or whether it's just reminders, cards, or memories, positive memories they had in relationships, or just feel good comments that they've had. Like, we need that. Like, a lot of people don't understand. People need to be told every once in a while that they're loved. A lot of us don't do that. Especially if you're in the pandemic and you see that person every day. See, normally you would have had your partner and you might have said, good night or goodbye, honey, and you give them a little kiss and send them on their way. So you feel good about that. It's a little touch, you know what I mean? Appreciation for each other and showing a little caring. But then when you got the COVID-19 and you ain't back at work, right? You're looking at each other every day. You might not be like, oh, I love you, because you might not at that stage. Y'all might have been fighting. You might have been carrying on. He might have said something that got on your nerves. And that's the thing with the pandemic. You're going to say things that get on each other's nerves. And you got to recognize that. A lot of people can't look past it. Yo, you said some things that hurt me. I'll never forgive you. Well, we're in the pandemic. I'm out of my mind. I apologize. But a lot of people don't even apologize. So it can be complicated. So it's not all bad. There's wonderful things with pandemic, but there's some not so wonderful things. And you got to remember that. So I suggest women get there, right? Their things and things that they enjoy and things that they appreciate, and some appreciation that they've been shown. And every once in a while, reflect upon that, right? Every once in a while, right? You want to put your things in your basket, right? I call it your busy basket. And the reason why I call it your busy basket, because there's things that you got in that basket that can help you. They could be just a list of things that you could be doing for yourself, right? I think you should develop that basket, right? And build from it, right? Spend some time in nature could be one of the suggestions that go in the basket, right? Whether it's a museum or whether it's a park, things like these, things that are going to get you into a more positive frame of mind. Like, list some things you like about yourself. We're wonderful, but a lot of times we're critical of ourselves. Women can be the most critical of themselves, judging themselves so harshly, right? And then there comes this partner of theirs, they're um, echoing the same sentiment, making you feel weird. Then you're like, what? You know what I'm saying? And then you're really down at the. But women are already critical. They don't need that from us. So, reading a book, watching a show, right? We all like to watch those TV shows where those housewives are carrying on. Not all of us, but there's all kinds of things going on. It's just drama. Some people watch it. Be careful with the violence, though, and that, because you get into that frame of mind, doesn't help. And sometimes watching those shows puts you in a depression, because it's like we can't get along. Like when you look at those shows, all these women are bickering and carrying on and talking bad, and they're arguing over nothing. Half that stuff is so petty. And then there's most women are like, oh my God, that's why I can't stand these shows, because they're pathetic. They make us look bad. Well, it's entertainment, right? If everything was cool, they're not showing it on TV. So what? There's always some. It's funny because I don't ever see an episode go by where there's no drama. So that's what it is. It's entertainment. So if you're depressed, try to watch things that are a little bit more lighter, not that violent, throwing, knocking things over, or greedy shows on who's got this and that. That's not going to help you. Or plastic surgery. That's not going to help you. Think about it. Woman that's got all this plastic surgery done to herself, and then you're a woman who you don't subscribe to that. Then you go, oh my God, how could they do that to themselves? Look at that show, Botched. You see it's like somebody is carving on their bodies. If you look back and you go, oh my God, look what they're doing, these doctors are doing, and these women are going in there to get it cut, get it chopped, get it trimmed. It's crazy, but it's happening. Men do it too, but we're talking about women right now. But I'm just saying, another woman looking at that will be like, hey, what's wrong with us? Everybody's fighting that one thing. You know what I mean? Ageism, right? No one wants to get older, so they fight it. And the more money that they got to throw into it, they do, right? They throw it in there. So, anyways, watching TV, be careful with that. Hot baths is good. Long hot baths. Um, Small simple tasks that make you happy. Playing with um some pets is great. Friends, face to face if you can. And music. Music can be very calming. It really can. It's that quiet time, that music, very. And once in a while, I always recommend doing something very spontaneous, something that breaks the norm, and you just want to do it. It makes you feel good. Get up, get out, get moving, do it. Get active. That's what I say. Get out. Go somewhere, right? Don't always plan it. Because a lot of times when we do that, right, it seems nice, but then we put all these things ahead of ourselves and we don't end up doing it. And then if we do plan it and we don't do it, we get what? Depressed. A lot of feelings and emotions, especially when it comes to decision making when you're depressed, and you like to make sure that you're upping yourself, not getting worse or deeper into a depression. So you want to make sure you're achieving little things. If you're not accomplishing things that you set up, then you're going to go deeper or stay in that state. So exercise is very good for you, and I mean exercise, activity, getting out. You don't have to be an aerobics instructor. Go for walks. Just continuous rhythmic movement. It benefits depression. Rhythmic exercise. Swimming, martial arts, dancing, walking, right? Just movement. And if you have music, put in together a playlist together that's going to give you energy. And hey, dance to it every once in a while. You don't need somebody to tell you to do these things, right? You know what I mean? You don't need a club to get some music that you really like, put it together like a playlist. You might have a book or just a magazine and play your music that you love to listen to. That's so good. We don't take enough time. See, happiness is what we have to start understanding more of. A lot of people are stuck on happiness, on wealth, and they're chasing all that. But finding your little place of happiness can be such a release, right? And make sure you got that mindfulness, right? Because depression is really rooted in unresolved trauma or issues, right? Fed by obsessive negative thoughts. So you want to focus on how your body feels as you move, your sensation, right? Your feet, how they impact the ground. You want to notice the wind blowing on your face, your skin, right? Your breathing, mindfulness. You got to look into it. And I really suggest a lot of people do that mindfulness. We have to. We're going so fast. So much is coming our way and people aren't taking time. And if you're going to keep up, not with the Joneses, just keep yourself up. Everybody chasing the Joneses is ridiculous. Okay? We got to stop that. We got to start understanding what happiness is. Like appreciation, that's what happiness is. Appreciation what you do have. It doesn't take long for somebody to look across the water and say, hey, I should be appreciated. Every day I'm on this planet and make things better. But appreciation, if we can have more of that, that is where happiness is. Appreciate what you do got, not what you're going to get. Appreciate what you have. Work with that. That helps. All right. So we talked about many, many things, but the one thing is make sure you are eating properly. Fight that fight. Make sure you are not loading up on junk. There's so many chemicals that they're throwing in to that food, especially that takeout. Oh, it tastes good, but no. Watch it. Eat healthy. We have a lot of choices, especially in this country, and that doesn't take a lot of work. But eat healthy. So beneficial. I know there's a lot of people who are older, and then what do you mean by eating healthy? I eat healthy. I eat balanced. No, certain things you have to pay attention to, okay? Like, everybody's eating way too much garbage out there. Cut back on that salt, those unhealthy fats, right? We're being marketed to every day. So it's hard to do that, but it's not impossible. We can do it. We have to give ourselves we got to eat healthier because those chemicals that are coming in our bodies with all that junk, artificial, that gets you into a depression. It's messing with your mind, right? Think about it. Balanced isn't like understand. Cut back on the salts, the fats, the caffeine, the sugar, the refined carbs, even the alcohol. Let it go. You know, don't skip meals. Eat healthy, eat balanced, but eat right. Going too long between meals, some people try it for a host of different reasons. Whether it's they're not feeling well or they're dieting or they're just not in that mood for it. It's just not appealing to them. It could be their state that they're in. But try to boost your vitamin B's, because deficiency in the B vitamins, such as the B12, that could trigger depression. You got to make sure you keep that balance. Boost it up if you can. Increase your intake. Eat more citrus fruit, leafy greens, beans. Everybody says this. Chicken, eggs. Everybody says eat more of this stuff. Just eat more foods with omega 3 and fatty acids, right? Omega 3 fatty acids, these play an essential role in stabilizing your mood. And the best sources are fatty fish, salmon, herring, mackerel, sardines, vegetation, seaweed, flaxseed, walnuts. Make sure you're getting enough iron. That's a big one, iron. You can't take iron for granted because low levels of iron, they can produce common depression symptoms. Women have been known to be irritable. It causes fatigue, difficult to concentrate, right? So you got to try to find some of those iron-rich foods to eat. And that would be the red meat, the beans, the leafy greens, and those dried fruits. Like, you know, go to Bulk Bar and get that dried fruits. Good for you, right? And add those herbal supplements. That they'll be very helpful, right? Primrose oil, and this is good for you as well. Just make sure while you can, especially try to get out there in the sunlight as much as possible. I know we're in a cold country where we have so much sunlight, and then the other part of the year, winter, it's a real challenge. It's gray, so that impacts the mood. And I'm a believer that the weather does impact our mood. But getting a daily dose of sunlight, it can help boost your serotonin levels, improve your mood. So you want to get at least a minimum of 15 minutes a day. And apart from the sunlight, you also want to challenge the negative thinking, because you're going to be doing some negative thinking. A lot of us have mind control where we could really do that. We can challenge the negative thinking, right? Because depression puts you in a negative state of mind. It spins everything out of control if you let it. The way you see yourself, others, the expectations, limited future. It's just the type of thoughts, these negative thoughts that can overwhelm you. You have to be aware of. Just remember, this is, depression. And some of your thoughts can be irrational, pessimistic. You know, attitudes could change. These cognitive distortions, sometimes they're just, you got to understand and realize, they're not realistic. So you got to learn to decipher between the two, right? Because women, they have a tendency to spend hours trying to figure out why they're feeling that way when they're going through this depressed feeling, right? Rumination, right? You know, it can maintain depression or make it even worse. You can't break out a pessimistic mind frame just by telling yourself to think positive. Of course, it's a lifelong pattern of thinking. It's not in a quick fix situation. No, it's something that you got to be careful with, because if you don't learn to think positive, it could be lifelong in the sense that that's the way you go. There's got to be something positive you're focusing on, and when you have certain thoughts, you got to be able to say, "Hey, these are just thoughts that I'm having. I can work through this. No, things are going to be okay." Right? Because these negative, unrealistic ways of thinking, all they do is make the depression worse. Right? So you got to watch out from certain attitudes that you get, which could include the all or nothing thinking. As I mentioned, just thinking things black or white and there's no middle ground, that could be problematic. Or right, or overgeneralizing about your experiences. Oh, you had something bad happen to you, so but you take it to the next. Your mind starts going, oh, it's really bad, it's terrible. No, you gotta keep it into perspective, right? And remember, I talked about this even with the men. Sometimes we ignore positive events, right? These positive events, and we focus on the negative events. We can have so much going on, but for some reason we're not appreciating all these good things that happen. And what do? We focus on the negative, right? So we got to have a mental filter. We got to know the difference between right and wrong and what's really going wrong. So we have to diminish those negative thinking by working and trying to establish this positive mindset. And that takes some work, right? If at all possible, try to stop yourself from jumping to conclusions, right? Making these negative interpretations without actually being, um, you know what I mean, being able to prove, like with actual evidence. So watch that. A lot of people just jump to conclusions. Don't think you're a mind reader, right? Also, where you start victimizing yourself, right? When somebody says something to you, we're always doing that, right? Like if we don't get along with somebody, we're always making these assumptions. Oh, they must be talking about me, or they're probably doing this, and we're really critical on ourselves. That's what we're talking about, right? So you have to engage more in understanding that no, the world's not against us, right? Always try and find ways in our mind to put ourselves down, right? Our emotional reasoning is kind of off balance. So, we're always believing that the way we feel is reality. Like, oh, I feel like I'm not a good person, or I'm such a loser, or I'm no good for anyone. No one's out there for me. So we get into this emotional reason, this battle with ourselves, right? So we got to be careful. Make sure, what we should and should not do. You know what I mean? We have those lists because I told you we beat each other up a lot of the times because we're harsh on ourselves. So when we hold ourselves to these strict lists and we don't meet them, then we get into some trouble, right? Or what we should or should not do. So we beat ourselves up. So we live up to these rules. And if we don't meet this obligation that we have, it could be troublesome. And we label ourselves sometimes, right? Right? We start to feel that when we do make mistakes or we don't meet some of our commitments, that we're what? We're less than. We're failures. We're losers, and we judge ourselves. And these are negative, unrealistic ways of thinking that just enhance this depression and makes you go in deeper, right? So I always recommend understanding is a key part to getting out of depression. Understanding what's going on with you. And the more you can get support for that, that's beautiful. So get professional help if needed. Is it needed in all cases? No. But therapy, talk therapy is great. It's an extremely effective treatment of depression. It could provide you with a lot of skills and insight. It can relieve some depression with the symptoms and help prevent depression from coming back, right? You just got to get yourself a therapist, and you got to be able to connect with the right one who will care and be supportive. And it's going to take some work. You might go through a couple therapists before you figure out one that you can work with. It's not easy. A lot of them are trying to do good work, but they just might not connect with you. Treat yourself as unique, right? And understand when it comes to your medication, that's all professional. That's nobody in your family should be saying, I take this, and no. If you whether you take it or not, that's between you and your physician. But um, antidepressant medication has a lot of side effects, but you have to be aware of them, and only a professional knows. So we have talked about some great things, and there are a lot of other things, many, many, many other things that get women female depression, get them into that female depression. There's so many things. We can't cover them all, but I want to thank my listeners. And I always say, spread the word like the wise old bird. I appreciate it. We have some good talks, and it's really about information and understanding and trying to connect. And every once in a while, coming back to the podcast and getting some reflection, right? It's important because you're important and you matter. And sometimes you have to go above and beyond to get the help that you need. A lot of times people will never understand what you're going through. They can relate, but you're unique in the sense that your experiences, you try to work with them. There are a number of things that I believe in society lead us to depression. There's a lot of reasons why people get into depression, but I'm saying there's enough instruments in society that put a lot of pressure on people, and unrealistic expectations could help people when it comes to depression, when they're having all these unrealistic expectations of themselves and they can't meet that, then they get into a depression. So that's what fuels it. I think it fuels depression when we have all these unrealistic expectations out there. And if you turn on the television, you'll see a lot of things going on that um, inputs and impresses upon our psyche. And we have to be more aware of. Awareness is everything. It really is. So I want to say thank you to all my listeners. You're wonderful people and I appreciate you. And we're going to keep on because we have some serious topics that we have to cover, because there's always need and room for improvement. And just a little bit of information goes a long way if we take some action. Okay? So take care of yourself, and until next time, thank you.